Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, for extra credit, you can turn in an Alarmo. Boy, you're rich, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society is rich with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. I don't know if you saw this news, Patrick, but that Muppet Vision 3D at Walt Disney World is being closed sometime next year to make way for that Monsters, Inc. roller coaster that they're going to add at Disney World to Disney's Hollywood studio.
Right, and that was sort of the speculation. People were like, that is what's going to happen. Say goodbye to Muppet Vision 3D now while you still have the chance.
Right, and, you know, Muppet Vision 3D, the last thing that Jim Henson ever directed. But I've got to say, I'm not that sad because I don't think Muppet Vision is very good.
Okay, so I haven't seen Muppet Vision since I was like 17. So like that's I remember liking it, but it's a very like gimmicky 3D 4D, right, thing. So or like 3.5D is how do they bill it?
I think they bill it as 4D because they
4D, okay.
like blow fans at you.
Yeah, and let's spray it with water, maybe. It's not universal.
Yeah, truly the fourth. No, I'm sure you get sprayed with water. Because that's the fourth dimension, is being sprayed with water.
Right. Everyone knows that's the fourth dimension. So, you know, like whatever. I guess I don't really have an opinion about like how good the actual attraction was. How do you feel about the fact that the Rock and Roller Coaster is turning into a Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster?
Okay, I think this is fun. I think this
is fun too.
I think Muppets for Aerosmith is an upgrade for sure.
It's a fair trade. And, you know, it also means that, like, they could still... Because the Muppets, when they play music, they frequently have human musical guests. So, like, Steven Tyler could still be on there. Rocking out with Janice or Dr. Teeth. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it works just fine.
I hadn't even thought about that, but that's a good point. So for the people that are upset about losing Aerosmith, it's still possible that Steven Tyler could be in this new Muppet attraction.
Have you ever, I don't know if we talked about this before, but have you ever known like an Aerosmith fan? Like someone who loves Aerosmith?
No.
If you're in the Discord, sound off. We need to know.
I
had one friend who was a big Aerosmith fan, and I never understood it. I never met like his peers in the Aerosmith fan community. I don't know if they exist. And I'm not saying Aerosmith is bad, but
no. And this person was a contemporary of yours. Like they weren't.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Adam was like a year older than me, I think.
Maybe they also really loved Armageddon. Do you think that song from Armageddon is what turned them on to Aerosmith?
I think the song from from Armageddon probably like started to like break the love affair with Aerosmith.
Oh,
Because that is like it's an anti Aerosmith vibe song, right? Because it's like so commercial and so like treacly and like so balletic.
I guess that's true. I don't know the discography of Aerosmith at all.
Yeah, they're just like more like kind of glam rocky.
Oh, okay.
Light on the glam, more just on like this sort of, it's like dirtbag glam rock. Does that make sense?
I've seen Steven Tyler. It makes sense.
You've seen the scarves on the microphone stand, you know.
Yeah. It does all come together.
If you would like to support us in not talking about Aerosmith, you can head on over to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where if you are supporting us at the 8 or 16-bit levels, you get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries like NCS Arcade.
Yes, where Patrick and I play games mostly available on Nintendo Switch Online that we've never beaten before. And for November, we're going to be talking about Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga.
Mark, I have an update. I have now beaten this game.
Whoa, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I of course played the 3DS remake, and Mark will be playing the original Game Boy Advance version as it appears on Nintendo Switch through the NSO Plus expansion pack.
Yeah, and that'll be fun to compare just like what that experience is like as well.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that will be releasing in just a couple of weeks, and so you can head on over to Patreon to check that out. And on Patreon, you can follow us for free, and everybody following us over there gets our listener feedback episodes where we respond to emails about the game we just played.
Right. So if you have any thoughts about Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga or the Mario and Luigi series in general, to which Mark and I are only getting acquainted really through this first entry, you should send those emails to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And we will incorporate them into the episode that, again, is free for everyone to listen to who follows us, whether you're paying money to the Patreon or not. Mark, have you heard this thing about Patreon now where if you are subscribing to someone's Patreon through the app on the Apple Store, that there's like an additional service fee?
Yes. We should probably do some investigation.
We should do some investigation into that. If you do that, you have to pay more for your subscription. So instead, just go into a browser and do it there. Is my understanding of what's happening. It's funny. I feel like I set that up in a way that sounded like it was fake, like it was a fake transition, like I was acting it, but it was real. It was a real thing that I was like, Mark, have you actually heard about this? Speaking of things that sound fake but are real, you can head on over to our Discord where you can chat with us and other Nintendo fans basically anytime you want. Email us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And I will send you an invitation, and then you can get in there. A little bit of a programming reminder, as you can tell today. Well, maybe you can't tell. We haven't started talking about what we've been playing this week or whatever. But this is not a news episode of the show. We are only releasing one episode due to the Thanksgiving holiday, and it is out for you here today. And I think we should stop dilly-dallying around, Mark. Let's get into our topic. Let's grade every year of the Nintendo Switch's life. Okay. Nintendo, we think this is probably like the last year of, it's not even probably, right? Like this is the last year of like just the Switch, right?
Right. Nintendo has already said that by the end of their current fiscal year, which means the end of March 2025, they're going to talk about whatever is coming next. And even though, once the Switch successor, the Switch 2, is released, the Switch will not drop dead. Things will continue to be released for it. It'll still be a going concern. It has this feeling of like the curtains are being drawn on the Switch.
Absolutely. We're hearing, Green Day is pulling out acoustic guitars so they can play Time of Your Life. We're done with the original Switch. And Mark, at this point, I would like to renew my prediction that the new Switch is going to be called the Switch Up. I'm becoming more confident of that every day.
I mean, I have learned to stop doubting you when it comes to the Switch successor, so I'd believe it. I would absolutely believe it.
Switch Up, I'm saying coming May or June. But look, we're not dealing with the future right now. We are dealing with the past. So, as we have done before, when we gave each of the franchises that appear on Switch, we gave them a letter grade like they're in school. We are now going to go through each year of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle and grading just the Nintendo Switch support. Obviously, there's some overlap here in these years between, in 2017, they, maybe weren't any Wii U games that came out, but they were still like the system still existed, and 3DS games continued to come out until I think 2019. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about just the Switch and the overall Switch ecosystem, and we've got a ton of different criteria for each year to try and grade these things.
Yep, that's right. And just just to reiterate what you said, we'll be giving everything an A through F grade.
Yes, right. And just like to like review that again. We got no S's here, right? There's no S tier. There's nothing like that. These are grades, pluses and minuses for everything, right? Except for F. An F is just an F. It's just a failure.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Mark, do you have any like just going in here? Are there any like flashes in your head where you're like, oh, that's a good year, oh, that's a bad year, or more than that? Do you expect to get like lots of? I'm worried that I'm going to be like, these years are A pluses, the rest of these years are A minuses. Good job, Nintendo.
Yeah, the one that I think is so I think that 2017 is a really amazing year.
Right.
And then the rest of them, it kind of runs together for me. Like I remember individual games that were released, but like holistically, I think for me that's going to be interesting to kind of like run down what happened in each year.
Yeah. It's it is. There's just a lot, right? Like a lot. It's a year. It's a long time for stuff to happen on systems, especially when Nintendo is consolidating their libraries into like a single revenue, or not revenue, but a single like stream. That it's just yeah. There'll be a lot to sift through here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what, like 5,000, 2,500, 6,000 minutes, something like that. What
525,600 minutes. Yeah.
Is that right?
Why did you try to say it like out of rhythm? Why did you do that?
It's like when they turn
it's like refusing to sing the alphabet.
Well, it's like when they turn a musical into a film and they're like, no, this is a film, so we're going to make them talk some of the parts that they usually sing.
Right. And you're like, why did that rhyme? Yeah. Okay, so obviously we are starting where it begins with 2017, the year that the Nintendo Switch is released. But Mark, I think we have to start not with the release of the Switch, but with the like full reveal announcement of the Switch.
Yeah, because that January presentation was a really big deal.
Huge deal, yes.
Because hard to remember, but that the Wii U was kind of was a gigantic flop. And so there was a lot riding on the Switch. And, I think generally speaking, people were enthusiastic about what Nintendo was offering, but also very skeptical that it was going to catch on.
Yeah, well, and just like because that's where we were, right? Like the Wii had sort of like limped to the finish line after like a really strong start, became sort of this like boring thing, and then the follow-up was the Wii U, which despite the bangers that that came out on it in terms of games, was like a disappointment commercially and like critically, and just like just in terms of critical mass, like people weren't playing the Wii U. So like people were in a place to be won over again, but they did need to be won over. And the fact that they were revealing this thing the way they were, we only had this brief teaser trailer from like October of the previous year, and they were like, we're going to live stream a stage show, like a broadcast worldwide from Japan, and like it, like that was it. That's how they were setting us up to understand what the Switch was and what it was capable of, and when we would have it, what we would pay for it, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And it was a strange presentation, but
yes,
it got the job done.
It got the job done, and like it ends so strong because it's like, by the way, Breath of the Wild, it's out in 2 months. It's all $300, and here's one more Breath of the Wild trailer. And like, everything else is sort of like middling to like a little bit lumpy throughout that presentation. We see a lot of 1-2 Switch and like ARMS and some Splatoon and all that kind of stuff, where you're like, okay, I kind of see what's neat about this thing. And it's really not until the end that you get like the knockout punch of Breath of the Wild, which then the thing launches with Breath of the Wild 2 months later, like I said, and it's like is that enough to like just make this year an A? Like, I don't. Maybe.
I mean, yeah, the thing that's so crazy about 2017 is that Nintendo really had the chambers loaded. Like,
Yes.
they knew what was at stake and had planned accordingly. So it's not just that you got Zelda Breath of the Wild, which, yeah, potentially, I mean, maybe when we get to Tears of the Kingdom, we'll see if it really is enough. Like a game like that really is enough to get the whole year in A.
Right.
But it's like a group project with one really strong player. But in 2017, it was a stacked cast. You had The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, followed by Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, followed by Splatoon 2, followed by Super Mario Odyssey, followed by Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And that's skipping over some first party releases like in between there. And
decent releases too, like Arms and well, I guess that's really it. Arms and like Snipper Clips, right? The other first party releases are 1-2 Switch, Flip Wars, Pokken Tournament DX, and Fire Emblem Warriors, which I would say are all like third or fourth tier games, right?
but like in 2017, every couple of months you
Yes.
had a game of the generation, right? Like
Yes. Yes.
Breath of the Wild sold incredibly and continues to sell. Mario
Mhm.
Kart 8 Deluxe still sells millions of copies every year. Splatoon 2 really cemented Splatoon as a major franchise for
Absolutely.
Nintendo.
Mhm.
Super Mario Odyssey is top tier. Mario and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was, like made that franchise all that more valuable to
Right.
Nintendo.
Well, and is the best-selling Xenoblade Chronicles game, right? Like by a factor of like two, right? Like it is twice as, maybe even more, right? Like I think it has like something like 4 million sales, something along those lines. And that's, even sort of discounting the third-party games that were coming to Switch at this time. Perhaps most notably of which is Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, a dang Mario game.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the strangest, most
Yes.
unexpected team ups that actually turned out really well.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you remember like in the sort of lead up to the announcement, because this was announced at E3, right? And that there were like leaks. It was like maybe there were a handful of like Emily Rogers and like Laura K. Dale were both like really like reporting on this Mario Rabbids crossover tactical RPG, and the collective response from everyone was like, first of all, what? And second of all, no. And then it
Yeah.
came out and it ruled.
Yeah, I mean, I had no love for the Rabbids
Yes.
before Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle came out, and it, yeah, was so enjoyable. What a fun surprise.
And this, the 2017, also sort of starts to cement Nintendo and the Switch specifically as like the home of indie games. We don't really get like the explosion of it until like maybe 2018, 2019. But like in 2017, Stardew Valley comes to Switch, Shovel Knight, the whole treasure trove, but specifically the Spectre Knight, Spectre of Torment scenario launches first on Switch. Minecraft, Rocket League, like there's just a bunch of huge indie games that are like making their home on Switch, which suddenly becomes like a much more there was this thing of like the Switch bump that you could put out an indie game on Switch and suddenly it starts to sell in a way that it wasn't on other platforms or wouldn't
Right.
on other platforms.
Right, because people were so excited about the Switch, and in its early days, there were not that many releases, and the Switch was playing catch up, not just on indie releases, not just with, like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but all of the indie games that didn't make it to Wii
Yep,
U were now beginning to come to Switch, and each one, like when, Cave Story comes to Switch, that's a big deal in 2017.
totally.
Like
Yes.
it's exciting to have it on that platform. And then you're also getting a bunch of like third party releases that are kind of reminiscent of what the Wii U got in some ways in its like early third party support, where you're
Yes,
getting
lots
you're
of
getting like
Batman Arkham City Armored Edition vibes from these games.
yes, yeah, you're getting like LA Noire, and Rockstar wouldn't really show up on Switch in a big way, so you're getting like some of those releases, but then you're getting hints of things that do feel like in some ways like a seismic change, like Skyrim is released, and
Yeah.
having that like portably is really fun and a big deal. Bethesda got Doom running on Switch
This
fairly
is
decently.
the 2016
The
Doom.
2016
Yeah.
reboot, yeah.
Right.
And I played
Not like old-fashioned Doom that
right.
famously runs on everything.
Right. And I played the 2016
Mhm.
Doom on Switch, and I had it in handheld mode, and I had a good time with it. So it's like and Bethesda was a really good partner on Switch, has been a really good partner on Switch. The Wolfenstein games would come to it and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff. Before the like Microsoft acquisition, we were seeing a lot of that.
We're also seeing the beginning of, and we would see this, of course, on Wii U and other Nintendo platforms too. But like Sega really showing up for the Switch as well in 2017. Sonic Mania comes to Switch. Sonic Forces comes to Switch in 2017, which for years, Mark, you and I mailed my copy of Sonic Forces around the country to listeners of this show. And I say the country, but I shipped it internationally. It was a problem. It was gone for like 3 months. Also, Puyo Puyo Tetris. And there was a sequel to that came a couple years later as well. And it's just like, that's really Sega showing up, and we'll see that later, like from Atlas as well. And that's just like Sega. We just got a Like a Dragon game, right? On Switch as well. So it's sort of the beginning of that here.
So, I don't know if there's anything else that we want to talk about specifically about 2017, but I feel like if there was a year that I wanted to give an A plus, it's 2017.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we want to shoot right to the top at the very beginning, and it because maybe another year will is it an A plus, or is it just we're not grading on a curve? So is it just the best year for the Switch? I don't know. Do we give it an A? What are you feeling?
Well, so this is like I'm tempted to say A plus, but I do want to just like cast us back to the early days, to like March and April of this thing. And Breath of the Wild is a big meaty game. There was a lot to play there. But the Switch launched with like an eShop that had 4 games on it, right? Like it's crazy that since they were starting their digital library over, something that like no one else has done in like over a decade at this point, that like there genuinely was just not that much to play, even with this impressive list of games that we just rattled off. Mark, we're a weird bellwether because, we're obsessives and we have to talk about Nintendo games twice every week. But like, we did a whole episode on an indie game called Snake Pass.
Well, I feel like Snake Pass is a really good example of early Switch because they're, like you said, there were not very many new releases every week. And I remember when we were talking about the new releases in news episodes, there were so many caveats of like, maybe it'll come out on this day, because
that's right.
Even more than today, like release dates were so loose as everybody was still trying to figure out, like how to get certified for the new system and all of that stuff. But yeah, Snake Pass is a really good example because there were not so many releases on the Switch. It was before like the deluge that, a game that had a soundtrack by David Wise got a lot of
attention,
like on blogs and stuff like that. We did a whole episode about it. We both played it, and like, is Snake Pass something that would even really be on our radar to even bring up in new releases in 2024?
I don't think so.
Probably not. Maybe the fact that David Wise did the soundtrack would be enough to have it get a mention, but very, very different times for sure.
Also, just want to point out that this is a pretty good year for Amiibo too. We get the Breath of the Wild Amiibo that launched with the system, the Archer, the Rider, the Zelda, the Bokoblin, the Guardian, and then with the release of the Champions Ballad DLC at the end of the year, which again, like another thing worth pointing out, that all of Zelda's DLC comes out in 2017 as well. That we get the Champions, which are awesome amiibo that we discussed last week as being among our favorites, our wows, if you will. And then there were the Mario Odyssey Wedding amiibo, the Splatoon 2 Boy Girl Pearl Marina, The Zelda series is still like going strong at this point. So Majora's Mask, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, all of those came out during this time. And let's not forget the Mario cereal, which was itself an amiibo. So kind of a cool year for amiibo too.
Yeah. So I don't know where are you leaning?
I think just A. And the reason I think just A is that like it is a slight year, right? That it is not. Do you know what I mean? Like I know some of the releases are huge, but like the library only is these things that we mentioned, right?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. Like from a Nintendo first party perspective, it's hard to knock it.
Yes.
Because but I do think you're right. It's not a perfect year, for sure.
If you took, and this is obviously not fair, but if you took Breath of the Wild out of this lineup, if Breath of the Wild came out the previous year on Wii U, right? Is this year an A? And the answer is like no, like it needs, but it's the greatest game of all, so I don't, what am I even saying?
But like, is it not an A? Because you have Super Mario Odyssey, which you have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you have Splatoon 2, you have Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like even without Breath of the Wild,
you're not wrong.
You still have some of the games of the generation being released this year. But I feel good about A. I feel good about A.
Okay. Yeah, but not A plus, but also not A minus, like a solid A.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know that anything will get an A plus, but I guess we could be surprised.
Yes, I will agree. Okay, and I think you mentioned it at the beginning. We knew that was going to be like a strong year, right? That like if any of them was going to kiss the upper bounds of this, it was going to be 2017.
Well, and I know we're not dwelling too much on the future, but I feel like everybody's expectations are that 2025 will be a repeat of 2017, which is bonkers because they won't have a Zelda game. Probably. That would be the craziest thing in the
world. Here's my fear is that 2023 was their repeat of 2017, which I think is a very good year, but a little bit more uneven than the one that we just discussed. And I think that next year will be more like 2019, which is a very good year, and we'll get to it. But let's talk 2018, and then we can draw parallels between it and the year that we're currently in, because I think there are some. 2018, the Switch is settling into its existence, and they are starting to experiment with stuff a little bit. But mostly, Mark, this is like a port year, right? So in terms of games that Nintendo publishes that are ports, we've got Dragon Quest Builders, we've got Bayonetta 2, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and The World Ends With You Final Remix. Those are
in some ways Sushi Striker as well. I mean, because it premiered on 3DS and Switch at the same time, and it's definitely a 3DS game that was worked kind of painfully into become a Switch game as well.
Well, and arguably, Pokemon Quest is on this list too. That it is, I mean, that's a mobile game, right?
Right.
That then also appeared on Switch. So, like, that is clearly Nintendo being like, "Oh God, we need to put more stuff on this machine." And that's part of what defines the Switch's library is that it is carryovers from the Wii U's because no one played the Wii U. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is where there are a lot of ports, but because it's coming from the Wii U, it's still a pretty good year, at least for somebody like me who didn't own a Wii U, and now I'm getting my hands on Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the first time. That, and let's talk about Mario Tennis Aces for a second. Because
sure. Well, can we just quickly lay out what like the new games were? Because I also want to talk about Aces for sure. But so the new first party games, which aren't ports, are just like brand new games: Kirby Star Allies, Mario Tennis Aces, Super Mario Party, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which are kind of remakes, right? And then ending the year with Super Smash Brothers, which is a thing we have to just talk about separately.
Right, yeah. Well, especially because it is a 2018 release, and we'll, I guess, count it here.
Yes.
But it persists for like 3 or 4 more years.
Yes. Incredibly, like it becomes a mini platform within the Switch as a game releasing platform. But yeah, let's talk about Mario Tennis Aces. What did you want to bring up there?
One thing I think that is interesting about Aces is, in 2017 we had the Switch bump for a lot of indie releases, or even, like Nintendo first party games. Yeah. But I feel like that really continues to carry over into 2018, because Mario Tennis Aces is not a game that I particularly would have paid any attention to previously.
Totally.
Or, like it is maybe the only Nintendo sports title other than Nintendo Switch Sports that I picked up on the Switch. And yet I feel like people were excited about it. People were talking about it in like it still had that early Switch hype that a lot of these titles benefited from.
Yeah, well, and I think, and maybe someday we need to really, and I know we've done episodes about like Mario sports games before, but I think at some point we need to really drill down into like why the hierarchy is that like Mario Tennis greater than Mario Golf greater than soccer, right? Like that they're just like, is that hierarchy to these things, and then like baseball below that. And maybe it's as simple as like tennis is like a foundational like form of a video game, like Pong is like the primordial ooze that all video games come out of, and so therefore a Mario Tennis makes the most sense out of any of these franchises. But like it makes sense that it's the one that went first, and it makes sense that it is also like the best received of them, the best selling of them, and all of that.
Both it and Kirby Star Allies is also when we begin to see something that kind of just take for granted now, but was new for Nintendo, where they would release the game and then they would offer free updates for basically a year, introducing new characters, introducing, like new courts for Mario Tennis Aces. And that same trickle DLC mentality worked in Kirby Star Allies as well, where for up to a year afterwards, they were still updating the game with new allies, and they talked about it in earnings releases as like a very purposeful strategy that they had to keep the games relevant and to keep it like in the news, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Well, and again, we have this warped perspective because we had to talk about Nintendo twice a week. But like that we were plugged into all of those, right? Every little update we were like, oh, here are the 2 new characters that are coming to Aces. But yeah, I wonder how well that actually did like generate additional attention for these things, or if like, well, yeah, I don't know. I guess it probably did do something to keep them in the conversation, even if just on like the fringes of like the internet.
And then Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. I feel like these games are, I don't know. Do you have a sense of what the general temperature on people's feelings of Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are?
Yeah, it's tough because like we talked about recently we talked about that cool the Pokemon Pokeball like Plus controller. We're both trying to like hold it in our hand invisibly, which doesn't work well for an audio medium, but we're both doing it. It's interesting because like it's obviously tied to Pokemon Go, which is like an ongoing concern. I don't know if this game has too much of like a footprint really, but I think Pokemon fans loved it because they got to like re-experience their memories of the first game without a lot of the annoying parts of Red and Blue. So yeah, I mean, I think it has a good reputation, and I think if they were to do another Let's Go game, which maybe that should come around in the first year of the Switch too, that it would be a hit.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't continue down that road at all, because I think these games sold like 15 million copies. But I really liked Let's Go. I thought it was a fun twist on the formula. I liked using the Go mechanic for catching Pokemon instead of having to like battle with them and all that kind of stuff. So it's my Pokemon game of the generation. It's the one of, like the many that were released that I finished. And so yeah, I just want to make special mention of it because I really like those games.
No, and it's totally worth special mention. Also special mention here, Super Mario Party. Well, that may be like decried as like, some sort of like weird bastardization of like the Mario Party formula, not in a way that totally breaks it, but like, perhaps overly focused on motion-based mini games, whatever. It's sold a bazillion copies. The best-selling Mario Party on the Switch out of 3. So
yeah, and another one that I feel like kind of rescued a franchise from the doldrums a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people, especially with Super Mario Party Jamboree, people are talking about Mario Party, and the franchise has seen sales that are better than they were in the past few generations, where I think people are just feeling like the formula was getting stale.
We should mention at the very least the notable DLC of the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion comes out in 2018. That was like a first player or single player like sort of challenge mode, very difficult like add-on to Splatoon 2, which is just like a lot of content. And of course, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country, which is like its whole own scenario that they would sell separately as its own game release, also comes out in 2018.
So I guess let's talk about third-party games as well.
We'll come back to Smash.
Oh, yeah. We'll come back to Smash. Octopath Traveler, that was a big deal.
Yep. Huge deal. Celeste.
Hollow Knight comes out on Switch. Fortnite is released on Switch in 2018.
Mega Man 11, that one's just for me.
This is also when you get the 1-2 punch of Diablo 3 Eternal Collection, and then Dark Souls Remastered from Software showing up.
So there's like the support is coming now from like all directions, right? Like people are like, wait, how do we sell our stuff on the Switch? Octopath Traveler, a great thing to call out here. I know that's how we started the list. But that was one of the games shown off in the live streamed presentation back in January 2017, and was the introduction of the concept of HD 2D, which obviously Square Enix still putting those games out, right? Like we just got the Dragon Quest 2 or 3 remake in that same style. So like it's the birth of a like a pillar of Square Enix.
And I think Fortnite, like the Switch really benefited from the fact that Fortnite was created in a way to be played everywhere, right?
Yes.
Like it was so scalable. You could play it on your phone, you could play it on PC, you could play it on your PlayStation, and you could play it on your Switch. And it like the fact that the Switch was not as powerful as some other systems doesn't hurt it as much when it comes to a game like Fortnite or games like Minecraft. And so in that way, the Switch was perfectly timed for some of these like service games that completely changed gaming around this time.
Right, and that were occupied largely by kids, right?
Right.
Like both Minecraft and Fortnite like have audiences of all ages, but like they have that younger audience, which not everything does. Worth pointing out here also, Labo launches in 2018. We get the variety kit. We get the variety kit and the robot kit, and then a couple months later, we get the vehicle kit. Labo, of course, being the sort of like cardboard construction peripheral thing, which is a ton of fun and super weird. And I will always treasure our time with Nintendo Labo.
Yes. Oh, dear to our hearts.
But like that, this is part of that, like Nintendo trying something new. It's them being a little bit more experimental. They're making up new ways for you to interact with the Switch. And it's cool even if it didn't like make a huge splash.
Yeah, always fun to see them take big swings like that.
Another thing here, and we will get to talking about Smash. But 2018 also sees the like official launch of Nintendo Switch Online with the NES library as one of the features. This is also when they make you when they start to make you pay for access to play games online. Previous to this, they had said that it was coming, but they didn't. There was no fee to play Splatoon online
Right.
in the year previous.
Yep. Okay. Are we ready to do it? Do we want to talk about Smash?
Yes, let's do it.
So, just a seismic event. They basically dedicate their entire E3 that year to blowing out the details of Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, and it did not disappoint.
It did not which is the insane part, because it not only did they blow out the entire E3 Direct, but the February Direct was capped off with the trailer announcing that there was a new Smash incoming, and it was, I mean, that felt like peak hype about like mysterious Nintendo things. It's that trailer where there's just like the Inklings are like hopping around. It looks like they're doing a little Splatoon turf war stuff, and then the sky goes dark. A giant flaming ball appears, and then like the cast of every Nintendo game is there and ready to fight the Inkling girl.
And the image of the burning Smash logo reflecting in the eye of the Inkling girl. And then just like the like forensic breakdown of the silhouettes of the other fighters to be like, that is not the Link from previous Smash games.
Right.
That's the
that
Breath
is a
of
Breath of the
Link.
Wild Link. Yes.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Very exciting.
So then that dovetailing into the E3 presentation, which was entirely about Smash, and the now famous "Everyone is here" announcement that every character from every previous Smash was in this game, along with a bunch of new ones, was just sort of like it seemed like an impossible thing that they were announcing. And then that was the entirety of Nintendo's booth at E3 that year. I guess we didn't mention the previous year. Nintendo's booth was Mario Odyssey, which neither Mark or I were there to see. So I guess we just have fewer memories of that. But yeah, the whole Smash thing was just like they had like trophies that were like relics of things from Nintendo, from across Nintendo franchises. And then the game itself came out that year. It was like one whole year from February to December of just like hype about this game, reveals about this game, and then it comes out and they get to keep riding that hype cycle for another like 3 years. It's incredible.
Yeah, I remember during E3 when they begin to reveal the fighters and you realize that it's like, oh, the ones from past games. And yet, even though after a while you're like, okay, they're all going to be here, even though that's going to be true, each time they reveal another returning fighter, it was no less exciting than the previous one.
Was it Snake? And then like I feel like there was one where it's like, oh my god, they're bringing this character back. Maybe it was like Pichu or the Ice Climbers or something. And then the like splash screen, everyone is here, and they're just like, yeah, that's right. And it was I don't know, that is up there with like the coolest video game trailer moments, like up there ever.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the game comes out and it's amazing. Okay, so how and sells 100 trillion copies as well, right? Like Smash Ultimate is one of the hyper success stories of the Switch.
And you know what? I the game itself is incredible, a shrine to video games. But do you think the fact that not that many people had a Wii U or a 3DS really, and so it had been for many people a long time since they had bought a new Smash, and to have one that was as complete as it was, like the Wii U was a failure, but in some ways the Wii U being a failure played into the success of the Switch.
100%. And I think that because I think a lot of people did view Ultimate as sort of like the return to form after Brawl, right? Like Super Smash Brothers Brawl is like seen as a notable step down from Melee on the GameCube, and some of that is just like there are these random elements or like things aren't balanced quite right, and a lot of that is fixed in Smash 4. But Smash 4 doesn't reach nearly the audience that Ultimate does because of the Switch. So yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right.
Okay, so I feel like grading 2018 is difficult because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate does a lot of heavy lifting
I agree.
for a year that otherwise is not bad by any means, but like you said, is port heavy, does not have a lot of those evergreen titles that we think of when we think of the Switch.
I think that 2018 looks a lot like 2014, but 2024, but it also has Smash Ultimate. Like when you look at the number of these games that are like ports or like Kirby Star Allies to like Princess Peach Showtime, that's a pretty direct parallel there. Even like Super Mario Party, we got Super Mario Party Jamboree this year. Maybe like the Echoes of Wisdom is a good comp for like Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, not in terms of sales, but just like in terms of like the space that it occupies in like the gamer imagination. I mean, it's also when the large single player expansions for the Splatoon game come out, right? Octo expansion comes out in 2018 and Side Order comes out in 2024. They're very similar years, except 18 had Ultimate.
That's a good point. Like the parallels between them. I feel like the caliber of games that they're porting in 2018 are greater than the caliber
Sure.
of games, like Another Code. I enjoyed my time playing it, and I'm glad I had the opportunity, but it is a niche of a niche, to bring
Sure,
that
yeah.
out in a way that like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is not. But
2018 doesn't have a Famicom Detective Club, so
I actually
flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, see. No, I think I would give this a B maybe.
I'm feeling B as well, and I mean if Smash weren't here, I would think like C plus, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Objectively though, Donkey Kong
Yeah.
Country Tropical Freeze is an incredible game.
Yep.
I loved Pokemon. Well, maybe not loved, but I really enjoyed Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is like a generational event. So maybe a B plus.
I mean, Sushi Striker, Captain Toad, which I love Captain Toad, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of high and a lot of kind of like mid lane.
Yeah,
and you're right.
yeah.
Maybe it does balance out to a B.
I think it's a B. I don't think it gets the honorary plus there. All right. Let's move on now to 2019. We've done 2 of these years. We've got 6 more to go. We've been talking for 45 minutes.
Start kicking off with New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
And then Tetris 99.
Oh man, Tetris 99. Okay.
I know, my game of the year every year since it came out.
Yeah, like open and shut case for 2019.
Sorry, can we take like a slightly different tact here than like maybe like listing everything?
Sure, yeah.
That for me, 2019 is like the king of the second rung Nintendo games, right? We got Super Mario Maker 2, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, the Link's Awakening remake, Luigi's Mansion 3, and like those all kind of occupy a similar space for me, where they're like really great games that are just like a step in the shadow of like mainline Zelda, mainline Mario, and then the rest of it is filled out with like pretty good stuff. Yoshi's Crafted World, Dragon Quest Builders 2, also Dragon Quest 11 Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, Ring Fit Adventure.
Yeah, not to mention Pokemon Sword and Shield plus the first round of DLC in the Smash Brothers Ultimate Fighter Pass with like Joker, Hero for Dragon Quest, Banjo-Kazooie, Terry Bogard. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is like Nintendo's B squad, the bench, coming off to play to give the A squad a few minutes, and yet what a like probably the strongest bench that Nintendo has had Fire Emblem Three Houses, the most successful Fire Emblem game, captured the imagination of people, including myself, who are not big Fire Emblem fans, in ways that the series never had before. Luigi's Mansion 3 going from like a B Nintendo tier franchise to basically catapulting itself into the A tier with the amount of sales that it has. Pokemon Sword and Shield, which we didn't mention, but also this is like, I feel like 2019 is prime Nintendo taking interesting swings, like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, and Demon X Machina. Games that, and Astral Chain, is that also 2019? All of that happened in 2019. So like Nintendo doing things that we don't necessarily see them repeating in later years, but it all happens right here in 2019. I think 2019 is a strong year.
So do I. There's also like worth noting, all of those games that we mentioned, none of them are ports from previous Nintendo consoles. Like, it's all, we can laugh almost any other year about 3DS, DS, and Wii U ports coming to Switch, but 2019 we can't because there aren't any.
Well, other than New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe.
Okay, there's that one.
But which is another example of like a game that, was lost on the Wii U and then just became a perennial seller on the Nintendo Switch.
Also, worth pointing out that the Super NES library starts to appear on Nintendo Switch Online. We get the final Labo kit, which is the VR kit. Strike against the year, frankly. The release of the Nintendo Switch Lite. We got new hardware in 2019.
And then some good third-party releases as well. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. Ori and the Blind Forest is released in 2019.
Huge.
Just
Cuphead.
Again, that those Microsoft relationships paying off. You get Mortal Kombat 11, Overwatch, Untitled Goose Game. You also get a deluge of Final Fantasy and Resident Evil ports from Capcom and Square Enix. Those all become available, and like being able to replay Resident Evil 4 on Switch was a ton of fun. Being able to play it in handheld, buying a bunch of Final Fantasy games that I'll never ever play was also a fun pastime.
With a blast. Waiting for them to go on sale and still spending like $100 on them. It's the third party support, just in terms of like people being like, oh yeah, our legacy stuff can start to go on here. The Spyro Reignited trilogy, you mentioned Resident Evil and Final Fantasy. It's just like, oh yeah, this can now, knowing that Nintendo and like Switch had like started over the digital library, that like this was now like launch all missiles at the Switch library now, because you're gonna find a hit.
A knock for or against 2019, or is it irrelevant that this is when we find out that Metroid Prime 4 development is rebooting?
Yeah, we didn't really mention it. It's in our notes, but at the E3 2017, we did find out that Metroid Prime 4 was in development for Nintendo Switch. And yeah, it's not till 2019 that we get an update. And the update is and it's a video all by itself in like January, where they're just like, we had to start over. We're sorry. It's going to be a little while before you see it again. And yeah, we didn't see it again until earlier this year. Yeah. So yeah, good question. Is that a strike against it, or I don't know. At this point, the mystique of Metroid Prime 4 is I like it. I'm happy that we're still waiting for it.
Yeah, it almost doesn't matter now that like we have some definitive information about Metroid Prime 4.
Yep.
Like the development of it is almost irrelevant. I also want to shout out Box Boy and Box Girl, because
Totally.
that's just a hobby horse of ours, and to see it show up on Switch, even if it was for that one game, was a lot of fun.
Another thing just to point out here is that this is the last like real E3 that Nintendo ends up attending, and one of the last like in-person, or the last in-person E3 kind of ever. The last 2 years had seen or the last 3 years at least had seen Nintendo devoting like their entire booth to a single game. And 2019 wasn't like that, right? 2019, there was like a Luigi's Mansion activation where like they had a mansion and people dressed up as bellhops. They had a stadium that was very Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then there was a cool diorama thing around Link's Awakening that it seemed like they weren't quite ready for people to be as excited about it as they were. But there was not a single, like, it sort of backs up what I was saying before, that like there's no one single knockout incredible game, but just a ton of really good games in 2019.
Although I have to say that, say what you want for the reception of it, but Pokemon Sword and Shield is the second best-selling Pokemon game of all time.
Right.
So I feel like 2019, I think you put it so well, these kind of like B-tier franchises, but what entries in B-tier franchises? Like, some of you expect them to be hitting triples, and some of them end up hitting home runs. I think 2019 is maybe a hair less good than 2017, maybe an A-.
Me too. I also think it's an A-, and this is again where I'm like, I don't know. I'm a Nintendo fanboy, and I'm going to be like, these are all A's and high B's.
But for myself, like New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe, really gained an appreciation for that game. Mario Maker 2, okay, but like Three Houses, yes, amazing experience. Link's Awakening, what a fun remake. Dragon Quest 11 S Echoes of Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, like
Changed
that
our
in and of
lives,
itself,
yes.
yeah, like so amazing. Ring Fit Adventure didn't make an impact on me this year, but would play a part of the future.
Would, yeah.
Luigi's Mansion 3, it is a good year.
And then, to say nothing of casually adding Nintendo's or Super Nintendo games to Nintendo Switch Online, the SNES is like my favorite classic library, and the fact that they launch it with like Star Fox and Super Mario World and Super Metroid and Link to the Past, games that I think we collectively revere as like some of the best ever made. I don't know. It's an awesome year.
Yep, for sure.
Now let's take a turn, Mark, to 2020. I think the taking a look at the year of Nintendo releases might be a little different from just like looking at what the actual year was, because of course this is the year that COVID-19 changes our lives forever.
Right, and definitely knocks video game development, not just for Nintendo but for everybody, off the rails. And so we definitely see that in the quality, or even like the number of releases from Nintendo and from third parties.
Right. So we are kind of getting back into a port cycle with Switch this year. Some notable ports coming from published by Nintendo are Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore, which we'll talk more about in a second, I'm sure, because I know you really like that game. But Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, it's the Super Mario 3D All Stars, which I know we'll also talk more in a second. Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Those are some pretty high profile ports and like remakes in a way that like we didn't see in the previous year.
Yeah, and you get a couple of new releases like Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, the Paper Mario The Origami King, but as like Super Mario Brothers
Warriors,
35, right? Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which was an exciting idea that you really want to run into a wall with Muso games pretty quickly, but the idea of revisiting the Breath of the Wild Hyrule in a new context, I think, was very exciting.
So, and obviously we're dancing around Animal Crossing New Horizons, but Mark, before we get into that, I want to give you a little space to talk about Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Well, sorry, before I do that, which I do want to talk about,
Let's
I also
cue it all up.
Well, even the third parties are like port heavy. You have Ori and the Will of the Wisps, you have BioShock Collection, you have the Borderlands Collection, you have the Outer Worlds, which I also played. so there are
Among Us, yeah.
there are new releases in here, but even for third party, some of the bigger ones were like, oh, BioShock is finally on Switch. Borderlands can be played on Switch. Um, but to talk about Tokyo Mirage Session Sharp FE Encore, that was a game that I was not really on my radar. I knew of it as this kind of like weird mashup between Fire Emblem and Persona, but didn't really understand what that meant. Did not play it when it released in January. I don't think it was until the end of 2020 that I was really putting time into it. But boy, did I really love that game, especially once the first hours are pretty crunchy. You see the limits of its budget and all that kind of stuff, and getting into the world and through the dialogue and all of that. But by the end, I loved the characters. I loved the system of like these singles like songs, like J-pop songs between the two characters. Tokyo Mirage Session Sharp FE Encore is probably the, other than Famicom Detective Club, like the surprise of the Switch generation for me.
Yeah, so like obviously a huge impact with that game. I gotta say, it's a third party game, but Hades obviously, occupies this space for me, which is like a game that I didn't really see coming. It had been in early access for like over a year, but when it eventually comes out, it becomes one of my favorite games ever, just like of all time. And I put a ton of time into that game.
I also want to just mention the Outer Worlds, because when that game
Yep.
first released, it definitely, there were super impressive ports to Switch, like The Witcher 3. And then there were also these games that really showed the limitation of the technology of like the Switch hardware, and The Outer Worlds was a good example of that. Maybe it was a rushed I don't know, but when that game released, I played through it in its original state and enjoyed my time with it, but it was rough going. And they later released, an update to make the frame rate smoother and less popping
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. But for every like magical port that came to Switch, there was at least another disappointing port.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A DLC support continues through this year. We get the end of the first fighter pass for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with Byleth, and the announcement of a brand new fighter pass. So the fun will never stop. Min Min, Steve, and from Minecraft and Sephiroth all come out, and then the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC, the Isle of Armor, and the Crown Tundra also released throughout the course of this year, which sort of sets this like new precedent for like how they do ongoing support for a Pokemon game, instead of there being some like third version or like ultra versions of the two existing versions. There's just DLC that you buy for it.
And of course, we'd be remiss in 2020 if we didn't talk about Animal Crossing New Horizons,
which is a lightning bolt out of the blue. I mean, people were primed already to be excited about a new Animal Crossing on like a widely owned platform, but the fact that it launched the same month that everyone was like trapped in their homes for the next year-ish, just a remarkable intersection of like opportunity and crisis. And yeah, like made a huge impact on all culture and video games and Nintendo forever.
Yeah, it was the perfect game at the perfect time. I uh, I feel like Animal Crossing New Horizons gets a lot of hate for what it isn't, but I think what it is a pretty compelling package.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do we Sorry, I'm just looking ahead, making sure that we're not missing. When did the re-release of Skyward Sword come out? Is that the next year?
I don't think it comes out until 2021.
Uh, oh yes, you're right. But for the Zelda and Loftwing amiibo, I think comes out in 2020. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I have it wrong in our notes. It doesn't matter. I was just looking at what we have listed for the amiibo. It's really just like the Smash amiibo that came out this year. Looking for something notable here. And of course, have to mention Mario Kart Live Home Circuit also came out, which you and I were like, thanks, not for us. We live in apartments in Los Angeles. It doesn't make sense for us to have remote control cars that are also AR video game things.
Right.
But a cool experiment.
Okay, so I don't know. B minus? Is this a C year?
It might. I think. Let's judge it harshly. Let's call it a C plus.
Yeah, I think that's fair because even the stuff that I like Paper Mario, the Origami King, yeah, I mean, Animal Crossing New Horizons, I think does the job.
It casts such a shadow. Yeah.
Yeah, that Smash Ultimate did for 2018, where it kind of like pulls it up. But even in relation to everything else, and of no fault of Nintendo's with COVID-19, I do think it's like
it's a rough year.
A C, a C plus. I'm not feeling as generous as you. I think I'd give it a C. But
you go straight C. I think Animal Crossing is just so Animal Crossing that it bumps up to a C plus for me.
Okay.
But yeah, like it is like a little bit of a bummer. It's a bummer of a year. And just like the way they were treating the Mario 35th anniversary, cool that we got 3D All Stars. It's missing a game, but okay. And cool that we got a Super Mario Brothers 35, but both of those were like limited time releases. Which like, okay, I guess it makes it feel more special when it's there, but it's also not there now, so it feels less special.
Yeah, you are right though that like Super Mario 3D All Stars, it's nice to be able to play, Sunshine. It's nice to be able to play Galaxy. It's nice to be able to play 64, even though we would get like the Nintendo 64 version later. But yeah, a C plus for 2020.
Also, no real updates to the NSO during 2020. I mean, like games are added, but like we didn't get a new library or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think we have it written down, and I don't know off the top of my head. But when was Pac-Man 99?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm not sure. We do not have it written down because I believe Pac-Man 99 was published by Bandai Namco, but I am not sure.
Oh, it was in 2021. So yeah, wouldn't do 2020 any good anyways.
Also, just want to, before we move off of it forever, just mention the jump rope challenge little game that employees at Nintendo were working on, and they've published, and all it is you doing a little jump rope with a rabbit.
And that at one point they were going to remove from
that's right.
being able to download, but I think it's still up there.
It is still up there. Okay, let's leave the dark days of 2020 behind us for 2021.
Okay, well, some notable first-party releases that jump out to me: Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury.
Yep.
You have
another port, but with something new.
The Famicom Detective Club games, those ports from the Famicom era. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, which was an exciting opportunity to play that game finally, and I ended up loving it.
Same. We got a WarioWare game finally. This is WarioWare Get It Together, which was like a new twist on the formula because you had like little guys on screen that you were controlling to play all the mini games.
And then I would say two kind of like, holy crap, I can't believe they did it releases. One was new Pokemon Snap, and then the other is Metroid Dread.
Yes. And Metroid Dread, so they did an E3 presentation this year. E3 was like digital this year or something like that. It existed in some form. And Nintendo did like a full like presentation. This is the first time I went to Connor McCabe's house. Maybe the first time I saw him in person was to go to his house and live react to this E3. And I remember when the trailer for Metroid Dread started, and my heart was in my throat, and like I could tell what it was, and like screamed at the reveal of the subtitle Dread, and a game that when it came out in September, just a couple months after its reveal, was like exactly what I wanted it to be. Like that is one where they like absolutely delivered on a like long outstanding Nintendo title and like a franchise that needed like another entry in it. Which feels a little bit like what was happening with Famicom Detective Club as well.
Yeah, totally. And also, you got some ad- additional like third party stuff. It was a really big year in the sense that Monster Hunter Rise was
Yeah.
released. You also got Monster Hunter Stories 2, Shin Megami Tensei 5, No More Heroes 3, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, Crash Bandicoot 4. So Neo, The World Ends With You. So another year of like new stuff from third parties.
Right. There's also the remake of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. More DLC for Smash, Pyra and Mithra, Kazuya and Sora all come out. Sora, of course, being like an amazing, I bet you didn't see that coming kind of reveal. And the DLC for Animal Crossing, the Happy Home Paradise, which I don't feel like made much of a splash anywhere except for in my household, where Sarah put in another like 100 hours or so of gameplay on just Happy Home Paradise, and was very cool. I still think they made a mistake in not selling it also as a separate game, like as a separate SKU, but very cool stuff there.
Yeah. And also, with the release of Dread, we got the Switch OLED model,
Yep.
which was there had been so many rumors in
Yes.
2021 of new hardware and that it was going to be like a Switch Pro or whatever, and that did not turn out to be the case. Turned out to be an upgraded, like nicer version of the existing Switch. And it took me a while to finally buy one. I didn't buy it when it first came out, but it is a nice piece of kit.
Yes, and I think it is like the way to like if you were to buy a Switch now, I would absolutely say like yeah, just get the OLED. It's better. But yeah, it is, and that is probably also a victim of 2020 and like supply constraints and stuff like that. That like the rumors were that there were all these new screens and that it would have like better processing power and stuff like that. And the only part that ended up being true was the new screens. And by ended up being true, I mean like was probably true at some point in the pipeline, but they just couldn't pull all of that together from supply chain restrictions.
But I do think in my grade, I will, even though I didn't buy it in 2021, I will count the OLED and that experience
I
in my
I I,
grade for 2021.
I will as well. We also have to mention here that Nintendo Switch Online got the Plus expansion pass, which introduced the Nintendo 64 and Genesis libraries. That I know you and I were really excited about. It also meant that the some DLC was included with the expansion pass. So like Happy Home Paradise and Octo expansion for Splatoon 2 were both just included as part of this increased subscription that also got you Nintendo 64 and Genesis games.
We glanced on it, but I feel like we should talk a little bit about Bowser's Fury and just
Yeah.
like Super Mario 3D World being released on Switch, because that's another example of a diamond of a
Yes.
Mario game that was buried on Switch being
Buried on
made
Wii U. Yeah.
on Wii U, yeah, being made available on Switch. Plus, it has Bowser's Fury, which is this, you know, uh, totally new take on an open world Mario experience.
Yeah. And is a game that I think I 100%ed in like a weekend. And in maybe like two long sittings. But like I absolutely love it. And if they ever did like a full-fledged, like deep version of that game, it would be like a dream come true for me. But I mean Bowser's Fury just as its own thing is a wonderful little experience.
And then I also feel like Skyward Sword HD, it was my first time playing it. I ended up
Yeah.
really loving it. And I think it did a lot just in general to rehabilitate the image of Skyward Sword. And having it available off of the Wii, I think, is a good thing for that game and that game's legacy.
We didn't really didn't really mention it, but we also get the second Mario Party on the system here in 2021, Mario Party Superstars, which is a greatest hits of sorts, like a return to form. You and I aren't really Mario Party guys, so this didn't really register for us. Can we talk a little bit about like some of the whiffs from this year? Like we got Miitopia, which I know like spoke to the audience that liked Miitopia on 3DS. DC Superhero Girls Teen Power, a weird release from Nintendo. Game Builder Garage, sort of an expansion of the Labo Garage. Mario Golf Super Rush, which I know like has its fans, but like didn't make the impact that Tennis Aces did. I think that's really it.
Yeah. And so I feel like a good solid year with some fun surprises, especially some fun surprises that are right up our alley, like Famicom Detective Club and Metroid Dread. But in general, not one of the strongest years for the Switch. I kind of feel like it's a B- type of year.
I feel that way too. It's better than 2020. But yeah, although wait a minute, hold on a second. I had a memory of a game that was like, wait a minute, when did blank come out? And it came out in 2020. It's Murder by Numbers, Mark.
Oh, right. Okay.
Murder
An
by
indie
Numbers
release. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was a set in the like 1990s Hollywood. It was a murder mystery game where you found clues by solving Picross puzzles. I loved it. It's not going to change our grade for that year, but just wanted to mention it.
Okay, I'm a little bit down on 2021, like it's a B-, and yet it has some life-changing experiences in here for us.
Yeah.
Mostly like Famicom Detective Club.
And Dread, frankly.
And Dread, and for me, Skyward Sword HD. So yep. I don't know. Is it a maybe B- still is the right still is the right grade.
Let's go with B-. That it feels it feels like the right move. All right. 2022, Mark, we're getting into what may maybe finally start to feel like recent history for us. 2022, how to summarize? Do you have like a take on this year?
Well, it's interesting because you do get a lot of new stuff.
Yes.
You have Pokemon Legends Arceus, Splatoon 3. I mean, it's a lot of threes. Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, Nintendo Switch Sports. To me, the standout
Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yeah, like to me, the standout release in hindsight is Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Absolutely. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I mean, I think for me, hands down, the best Kirby game. Like,
sure.
In a class totally separate from other Kirby games.
Yeah, like really between Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Splatoon 3 and then Live Alive, which is really just like Nintendo publishing a third-party game. Yeah, is 2022 the weakest year for the Switch?
It's interesting because sort of is the answer. We also get in this year the introduction of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass.
Right. Which,
and the first 3 waves of it. Yeah.
Which was exciting and yet at the same time like has had no impact on my life. Like when we were
you're right.
Like when we were doing our definitive like total ranking of all of the tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we ranked the Booster Course Pass internally first, but then when we put it up against the original tracks, all of them were found wanting. Like none of them really made an impact. And like the new
a handful do, but there's 48 new tracks. Yeah,
exactly. And then like the new drivers, some of them are exciting, but I already have my favorites, and none of like not very
Right.
many of the new ones make the cut. So, yeah, a mixed bag, in totality for the Booster Course Pass.
Speaking of a mixed bag in totality, 2022 is also the year that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet comes out. A game that is a technical mess, but a ton of fun to play and like a super compelling mess that like seems to be unaffected by its technical issues and people just loved it anyway.
Well, in some ways, I feel like Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is a good metaphor for the entire 2022,
Yeah.
where like seemingly it's a really good game, and yet I don't know that I'll ever find out. Like, it just seemed to
Yes.
like pass, like people were just kind of done with it with
Is
that
this
Mario plus Rabbids.
is this the year that Switch fatigue sets in? Right?
Mm.
Because like we get Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, we get Mario Strikers Battle League. Are we respectively tired of the Muso games based on Nintendo properties, the Mario sports games? Are we tired of Mario plus Rabbids? Are we just tired of what the Switch has to offer in 2022?
You get 2 HD 2D games. You get Triangle
Yeah,
Strategy and Live
crazy.
Alive in the
Crazy.
same year. And I think we're being pretty down on it because it's not like Legends Arceus was bad. We loved Kirby in the Forgotten Land. Nintendo Switch Sports, it doesn't have the lasting power of Wii Sports,
Yeah.
but a 15 million seller. Splatoon 3. I feel like Splatoon 3 is
It's a great game, yeah.
it may be the best selling Splatoon game, but I was not engaged with it in the way that I was engaged with Splatoon 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that's another example of like we're just kind of sick of it, right?
right.
Mhm.
We meaning like us personally.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, but it also feels like culturally there just isn't that like spark of excitement around each of these things.
I think that's true. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, right? Like sells
Hmm.
respectably, reviews well, but does not match the heights of Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yes. Third-party releases, Persona 5 Royal and Personas 3 and 4 also come out. Portal 1 and 2, Crisis Core Final Fantasy 7 Reunion, that's where I played it, was on Switch. Yeah, Sonic Frontiers.
But yeah, just another one where it's like it doesn't feel like everything's firing on all cylinders in the same way that it has previous years.
Yes, I agree. So in some ways I think this is the disappointment year, right? Where like things are set up to be exciting, or they're like things that got us excited in the past, and with the exception of something like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, or that's it. That everything else feels like a little bit of a letdown from what it promises.
Yeah, I mean, we really liked Live Alive,
Yeah,
and
totally.
you know, um, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and our whole Kirby month really did turn me around and made me excited about Kirby in a way that I was just primed to be disappointed when like Return to Dreamland Deluxe released, and you were just back to like kind of the same old, same old.
Yes,
But I
exactly.
really did love Forgotten Land. I don't know.
So is this a C minus year?
I think it might be.
I
Or
don't think it's a D.
I don't think
Although
it's a D. Is it just okay? Because 2020 is a C plus, and I don't think it like I'm leaning towards just
I see what
straight
you're saying.
C.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's just go straight C, which means we're putting it as like worse than 2020. It just doesn't have a an Animal Crossing, right? It doesn't have a Breath of the Wild or a Tears of the Kingdom. It doesn't have like an undeniable home run hit. Unless we would count Scarlet and Violet as that, but I don't.
Right, and that is definitely
Yeah,
a blind spot for us.
for
And
us, yeah,
like Forgotten Land is the best-selling Kirby game ever by a wide margin.
right. But also like no real like new hardware this year, and no real like Nintendo Switch Online like new libraries or anything like that.
I think C is good. It's like
Yeah.
it's passing.
No,
It's
totally.
it's doing just fine.
Right.
2022.
All right, let's move into 2023, last year. Which I mean, honestly, I think this is it was a great year for video games generally speaking, right? And I think for Nintendo, maybe not necessarily like seen as an absolutely killer year, but like at the end of the day when you start adding stuff up, we got Pikmin 4, we got Super Mario Brothers Wonder, we got the Super Mario RPG remake, we got Metroid Prime Remaster, we got Fire Emblem Engage, and of course we have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, but plus, like the surprise of Metroid Prime Remaster,
Yeah.
which was fun. And the year is not without its disappointments, like Fire Emblem Engage. For all
I
of its
listed that among my pros for the year.
yeah, but and I think that's the fact that I'm bringing it up as a con. Like for all of its
that's funny.
fans, I think that it's generally seen as disappointing. I think that Octopath Traveler 2, which is like a third-party release, and it doesn't excite people in the same way that the first Octopath Traveler game did.
Yeah, and I think like Detective Pikachu Returns kind of lands with a fart as well, right? Obviously, this is the year of everybody 1-2 Switch, which is like the ultimate Nintendo. Like, oh my god, just put it out. We can't.
Oh yeah, that's right. But you're right. I feel like between the debatable merits maybe of Fire Emblem Engage plus The Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom plus Pikmin 4 plus Super Mario Brothers Wonder plus like Super Mario RPG, that's a really good year. And I do want to talk about Wonder, but I don't know.
Where do you want to go? Because there's a lot to talk about this year.
Okay, well, let's just talk about Wonder real quick, because I wonder what sort of impact this game has, because it's coming towards kind of like the tail end of the Switch. It obviously sold well, but I don't know. It feels like one of those things that has not permeated in the way I think everybody was expecting a brand new 2D Mario game to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, and with the exception of like 2 challenge levels, Super Mario Brothers Wonder never gets to that like really hardcore Mario like difficulty, or even like it has this like insane jump to like hyper difficulty, but only for brief moments in the game that are like wholly optional. And it just seemed like it was missing out on that sort of like core audience reaction to it. I don't know. It's tough though, because like I know it is a game that is approachable and accessible for kids to play, and I wonder if it just like takes time for that stuff to like get to kids, especially like a full price $60 Mario game.
Yeah, that's true. And also with like a game like Super Mario Brothers Wonder, when you immediately are comparing it to games that are like 20 years old, and so they have you know what I mean, so they have just like a history to them that Wonder at this point, like we can't really judge its impact because it's too early to know like who necessarily would have ever guessed that like new Super Mario Brothers would be with us for 15 years or whatever.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's true. Like the next Wonder game could be, if they ever do it again. Like who knows? Also this year, or did you want to say more about Wonder, or is that kind of the?
No, that was pretty much it.
Just the notable DLC coming out this year, the second half of the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which like they do start to get a little bit more meaningful in the second half, right? It's when we get like fewer like kind of weird Mario Kart tour tracks and more like things that feel like brand new that premiere in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as part of the Booster Course Pass, and when they're adding characters too. We also get the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Teal Mask and the Indigo Disc.
Yep. Also, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp finally comes out.
Yes.
In 2023.
And F-Zero 99.
Yes, just part of Nintendo's slow march towards something new F-Zero. It really feels like.
Yes.
Um I okay, you obviously were Pikmin pilled in
Yep.
2023 and Pikmin 4 really ended up rocking your world. Anything you want to say about that before we
Oh no, it
um
just that I love the game. It they also released Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2 as sort of like enhanced GameCube ports on Switch this year. I picked up all three of these games and played all three of them in 2023. They're all fantastic. Pikmin 4 was so good that I declared that I was going to buy everything Nintendo put out in 2024 for fear of missing something as good as Pikmin again in the future. And I've done it. I bought everything they put out in 2024. I don't think I found a new Pikmin, but it still felt like I was, holding up my end of the deal there.
and then some third-party games like Octopath Traveler 2, Sea of Stars, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters come to Switch in 2023. You have that Persona 5 spin-off game, Tactica, and Disney's Illusion Island,
Which I
but
really liked. Yeah.
and Hogwarts Legacy making a big impact in gaming in 2023.
Also, just want to shout out that this is when Nintendo Switch Online adds the Game Boy library and the Game Boy Advance library to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. Still some like big absences from those libraries, and they both launched sort of anemically with like 5 or 6 games each, which is not in line with how they launched the NES and the Super NES, and is just sort of weird. Why can't we play Mole Mania? What's happening here?
um,
But cool that those are became part of the service there.
so Tears of the Kingdom,
Yeah.
after years of build-up, finally releases in 2023, and is definitely the anchor for 2023 of Nintendo's
Yes.
year.
And is always going to feel like a second swing at Breath of the Wild because it looks very similar and uses the same map, and like just a lot of these systems are the same, but is also just crazy ambitious evolution of that formula. And the fact that you can build whatever and it works somehow is just sort of a staggering accomplishment. Like, the game was a moment in time. It's just never going to be able to match the moment in time that Breath of the Wild was.
Yeah, but just being able to revisit Hyrule, and plus it's like Hyrule plus. You're
Yes.
revisiting Hyrule and everything is the same but different. You have the Sky Islands, you have these new powers. I mean, I don't know that, well, there are a few things that they take from Breath of the Wild and then just build upon and improve, and uh maybe holistically the experience of playing Tears of the Kingdom, like my like overall experience of playing Breath of the Wild, that newness of everything kind of still makes it my favorite. But in Tears of the Kingdom, like the storytelling and some of
So much
like
better. Yeah.
the approach to the Wind Temple in Tears of the Kingdom is just
It
incredible in and of
rules. Yes.
itself. Like probably better than uh most singular moments in Breath of the Wild. The finale of Tears of the Kingdom is just absolutely incredible.
Yes. Yes. And
Uh
we see it actually a bunch this year in Wonder and in Pikmin 4 that like Nintendo got really good at this. The ending is a perfect culmination of everything that came before it. It's something that we see sort of like scattered throughout Nintendo's history. Like, it's in Super Mario 3D World. It's in what was the other example I had?
I feel
Not
like
Breath of the Wild.
I feel like Odyssey was a good
Odyssey, yes.
example of it. Yeah.
But it's just nuts that Nintendo lands 3 of them in this year in Pikmin 4, Mario Wonder, and Tears of the Kingdom, and they're all like perfect.
Yeah. Um any thoughts on how you want to grade 2023?
A. I think it's a straight A. Like there are some things dragging it down, but I don't think they drag them down harder than like the weird things in 2017.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I want to. My thought was A minus because I think like the breadth of the year is not as strong as 2017 was. Like I think the B titles in 2023 are not as strong as the B titles in 2017 overall. But I'm not. But I'm not going to fight you that hard on it.
Yeah, I mean, for me 2023 like adds up to almost like the perfect Nintendo year for me, which is why like I'm not pushing for an A plus. So yeah, if we could settle on A, I would be happy.
Okay, let's do it. Let's give 2023 an A.
All right, which Mark now brings us to our current year, 2024. And what a year it has been. Mark, how would you how can you summarize this year?
Lumpy. It's been a lumpy year. Like we've been saying from basically January, it's a weird year for video games and that really proved to be true for Nintendo's 2024.
Yes. And mind you, there's not a lot. There are things in 2024 that you and I really popped for, right?
Right.
And in some like strange places, like in the middle of the year, they did both a Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake and a Luigi's Mansion 2 remake. You and I were excited about Thousand Year Door, but we ended up loving Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, and Luigi's Mansion 2 was the one that when they revealed it, I was like, that looks crappy. Like, that just looks not very
get that
good.
turd out of here. We're not interested.
But yeah, like, I mean, I think no better tone setter for what you're going to get than another Code Recollection and Mario versus Donkey Kong, right? Where it's just yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with these games. They're fine. They're fine. They're fine.
They're fine.
But
then you follow them up with Princess Peach Showtime and you go, uh-oh. Uh-oh, what's happening with this year?
Yeah.
There's a problem with the year.
I think Princess Peach Showtime, what a missed opportunity that game was to be something special, to be something like really good.
I was so intrigued by the game before it came out. Thought it was cute in the first like hour or so of playing it. By the end, I hated it. And in the time since, it's only further rotted in my mind where I'm like, Princess Peach Showtime is now just this like blight on 2024. But you know, like it wouldn't have to be if there were higher highs elsewhere in the year.
Right. I mean, and really for us specifically, yes. Famicom Detective Club, like getting a new game, Emio the Smiling Man, is, you know, like it's like a second Christmas. It was just so surprising, and we ended up loving the game. Plus, you know, to get a new Legend of Zelda game, a new 2D Legend of Zelda game, which could have been dead. It's very possible that after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they, you know, were like,
never go back.
There's no going back. So to have that and to have it be the first playable Zelda, I can only speak so much to it, like because I haven't played it yet. I haven't beaten it.
Echoes of Wisdom occupies a very strange space because, Mark, I think your story is a common one that people liked what they played, but didn't feel compelled to like go back to it. And it's obviously like, it's not a super long game, but like it's a Zelda game, right? So like, you know, it's going to be an investment. And if you're not in love with it right away, why would you commit your 20 plus hours to playing it? But I really, really loved Echoes of Wisdom. I think probably Emio still like edges it out as like my Nintendo game of the year. But I had a ton of fun with Echoes of Wisdom, and I think the game like gets more interesting and more fun with each passing dungeon and with like other layers of the map that you expose and echoes that you learn and all that kind of stuff.
Nintendo wasn't done surprising us in 2024. We had Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. And then also, you know, did Famicom Detective Club rise from the dead? Yes, but so did the Mario and Luigi series with the recently released Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Right, which I think you and I can't really speak to either, right? Like, it seems like just from like reviews that like, yeah, they made a Mario and Luigi game, and it has all of its strengths and all of its weaknesses. Yeah, go ahead.
I also want to call out the Splatoon 3 final DLC Side Order, which I played thanks to some encouragement from the Discord and ended up like I haven't returned to it, but for like a solid 5 days, I got so into Side Order, and it is very cool. It is a very, very fun, unique experience.
Notable third-party games. One that landed okay with me and really well with you is Pentiment. This is part of the Microsoft and Xbox putting their like first-party games on other platforms, along with Grounded, which didn't really hit you and I at all. Otherwise, it's sort of spotty third-party support. Seems like.
Well, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown got a lot
Sure.
of love, maybe not a lot of sales, and then Kingdom Come Deliverance was a big deal coming to Switch.
Also, Unicorn Overlord, the new Vanillaware game, another like big thing that came out, but I just don't know how much of an impact it made.
Was there a previous year that you were comparing 2024 to?
Yes, it was 2018.
And 2018 was the year that included games like Mario Tennis Aces, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. A lot of those, it was like another port heavy year. Yeah.
Yes.
I do see that.
Yep. That's what I am seeing here. Some of the like Nintendo Switch Online related stuff. We saw Rare games from the publisher Rare showing up on Nintendo Switch Online. Also, the introduction of the Nintendo Switch Online Nintendo 64 M17 Plus app.
Oh, right.
Which just got loaded with like a bunch of crappy games no one's ever going to play. And of course, very recently, the release of the Nintendo Music app, which isn't strictly a Switch thing.
Yeah, do we count it or Alarmo?
I don't know. I don't know. And what did they do to the score? Frankly, it's like
right. Yeah, maybe they just split the difference or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, because like Nintendo Music app is fun and Alarmo is cool that it exists for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, maybe it's not fair to count them towards grading the Switch because they're tangentially related at best.
Yes. This is also the year that made me say, is Amiibo dead? Because Nintendo released a total of 4 different Amiibo packages. One is just Sora, which is cool and incredible that they put out a Sora Amiibo. We were talking about it last week. It's crazy that they were able to do that. But then Noah and Mio from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and then the 2 like alternate costume versions of the Splatoon idols with Splatoon 3, and that's it. Like a very quiet year as far as Amiibo is concerned.
So, is this
the worst year of the Switch? I mean, like, I think it is, right?
I think it is.
Sort of undeniably.
Yeah. When Famicom Detective Club, God love it, is, like our Nintendo game of the year, I think that is pretty telling. Is it a D? Is it a D?
I mean, it feels like it's maybe a D plus.
A D plus, yeah. I mean, but like just a year with a new Zelda game, it feels so wrong to be giving it such a low score, and yet it's where my heart's at.
I mean, we didn't mention Endless Ocean Luminous, another just like absolute like
dog
of like it made no impact, was nothing, boring, looked bad. I bought it and was mad about it because I had
we bought it
You're right. And Mark, you've never asked me for
your
weird
time
with the cart.
Weird.
But man, yeah, I mean, like Princess Peach Showtime is such like a just like I said before, a blight on this year.
Yeah, I mean, it does have a lot of things that, or maybe not a lot, and maybe that's the problem. But I tip my cap to another Code Recollection,
Totally.
um,
And
and
I tip my cap to Mario versus Donkey Kong. I think that was a fun remake of that game. We played it for like a week and then talked about it, and then I haven't thought about it since.
right, and it's another like tip my cap to any Nintendo World Championships NES edition.
Yep.
Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, one of those again, like you mentioned. Crazy that it happened. Great that it exists. I bought it, put like an hour into it. I don't know when I'll ever go back to it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a D plus.
It's a D plus. Mark, you got to get back to Echoes of Wisdom at some point.
I know, I really do. And once I play Mario plus Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and
Yeah.
then I think I want to roll into Dragon Quest 3. And then Echoes of Wisdom is on my list.
Yeah, we didn't mention Dragon Quest 3 as like a notable third-party game on Switch this year, but it's on everything. So,
yep.
Okay, do we want to review our grades for all these years?
Yeah, let's do it one more time. Make sure that we're feeling good about it.
2017, the release of the Switch, we gave an A.
2018, we gave a B.
And that's largely because it's like Port City, USA, plus Smash Brothers, right?
Yep, that's right.
2019, a great year for like second string games. We gave an A minus.
Yeah, really something for everybody.
Yeah. Genuinely, yeah.
And of course, it has Tetris 99, Patrick's Game of the Year.
My Game of the Year
every year. 2020, obviously impacted by COVID, a C plus. Some really fun stuff like Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Cool to get the Super Mario Brothers 35, but really buoyed by Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah, otherwise a frustrating year. Speaking of frustrating years, 2021 we gave a B minus to, which despite the fact it had the Famicom Detective Club game remakes. No, wait, why did we give this year? Which was our like disappointment year? Sorry, next year is our disappointment year. Yeah, we like this one just fine. It was just kind of thin.
Yeah. But 2022 is a really like the disappointing year. We gave it a C. And it of course has Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but otherwise, some big releases, Splatoon 3, but not really anything that captured the imagination in the way some of the other years did.
This is the year we were sick of what the Switch was offering.
Yeah. As exemplified by Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Yep. And then 2023, we gave an A because, largely because it had 3 absolutely killer games in the form of Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, and Pikmin 4. And then strong kind of throughout of like other interesting stuff, even if it has big misses, like Everybody 1-2 Switch and what was the other big miss on here?
It's kind of hard to Detective Pikachu Returns, but I think it's kind of hard to like put too much weight to Everybody 1-2 Switch because Nintendo basically apologized for it when they priced it at $30 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then finally 2024, not even really just not even a disappointing year, just kind of like the holding pattern year.
Right. This is, yes, exactly. It's a D plus, but it's not a D plus that you would write on the paper like you can do better. It's like D plus. We understand what you're going through, but you earned this grade.
Exactly. Your grandparent died, and so it's like I know you can do better. I know you can. Just extenuating circumstances. Is like it is what it is.
Right. So we'll expect more from you next year. All right, Mark. Let's close this out. That is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Mark, how do you think we did? Do you think people are going to agree with us, or you think there's room for argument here?
Well, I would give us an A plus, but I'm always open to being told otherwise, and so you should definitely write into us or hit us up in the Discord where you either agree or disagree with us,
or agree with us sometimes. Disagree with us other times. I give us a B. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much to our 16-bit patrons, Connor McCabe, Patrice Millette, Kyle Seaborn. We appreciate you. We appreciate everyone who's listening or interacting with us in any way. Again, this is the only episode we're doing this week, so we give you a nice long one. Enjoy the holiday if you are in the States, and if you're not in the States, enjoy the week anyway. Take a day off. Treat it like a holiday.
Yeah, you've earned it.
Yes. Hey, you've earned it. That's it. Get in the Discord. Email us. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.